Let's get into the latest news on the Boston Celtics. And Evan Fournier has been out for the last 9 games, but he is going to be available for the Boston Celtics tonight. Kemba Walker, as well as Robert Williams and Jaylen Brown, are going to be out for the Celtics, but Evan Fournier is going to play. Now, this news just came across minutes before we started the show. We're not sure if he's actually going to play. We just know that Evan Fournier is going to be available after missing the last 9 games because of COVID protocols. Now, the Celtics haven't necessarily missed him. They have gone 7-2 without the services of Evan Fournier, but on NBA trade deadline day, this was their biggest pickup, bringing in a guy who over the last 6 years has averaged at least 15 points per game and is a great piece for their bench. So when he does come back, he's going to bolster the Celtics bench rotation, and this Celtics team over the last 2-3 weeks has started to get it together. They're starting to click. They're climbing up the Eastern Conference standings right now, and with a two-way wing combo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I think the Celtics are really dangerous in the NBA playoffs as long as they avoid playing in that play-in tournament. Now, Evan Fournier has been out for the last 9 games because of COVID-19. Jason Tatum missed time earlier on in the year because of the coronavirus and actually still has to use an inhaler before he plays because COVID is still affecting his lung capacity in terms of getting air. So if Evan Fournier wants to know what it's like to return to the basketball court, he can turn to his teammate in Jason Tatum and ask him what that transition is going to be like. Here's what Tatum had to say about Fournier coming back. Quote, "I think the toughest period is when you first get back, obviously, because you've been sitting down for a while, and because of the virus, hopefully he'll be all right. I'm sure he will, but he knows I'm here for anything while he's dealing with it." That's Jason Tatum on Evan Fournier's battle and return to the court from the coronavirus. So Celtics fans, you haven't seen him for the last few weeks, and he only played a handful of games when he was traded to the Celtics from the Magic. Evan Fournier coming back tonight, Friday night, as we record this. Are you excited to see him back? Type 1 for yes or type 2 for no. Here in 2020, 2021, pretty solid numbers for Fournier, the guy out of France, little more than 18 points per game. And really, he is a guy who can come in off the bench for a playoff team and kind of give that team a little bit of a spark. And I think he fits in perfectly as a role player for this team. Started a lot of games for the Orlando Magic, but for a team in playoff contention, I think Evan Fournier is just that guy who can kind of go on a heater and score some points in bunches as a reserve and bolster that bench unit for the Celtics, because at the wing spot, which is what Evan Fournier kind of occupies, he can come in and spell Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. So Evan Fournier coming back tonight for the Boston Celtics, a great addition. He's going to be available for Brad Stevens to plug into that lineup after missing 9 games. Kemba Walker will not play on Friday night, but Kemba Walker has been playing at an elite level over the last week or two. And on Thursday night, in a huge game against the Phoenix Suns, I think Kemba Walker had his best game of this season as a Celtic, and Kendrick Perkins said Kemba Walker might have had his best game as a Celtic in general against the Phoenix Suns, starting to play much better after a slow start. And if you remember around the All-Star break last year, Kemba Walker hurt his knee and just hasn't been the same player since. The explosiveness hasn't been there. The athleticism hasn't necessarily been there. The consistency hasn't been there. And he hasn't played on the back end of back-to-backs really throughout the entire season, which is why he's missing tonight's game. But for Boston to succeed in the playoffs, they need Kemba Walker to play well like he has over the last couple of weeks. And if he plays like this, like he did against the Suns on Thursday night, I think the Celtics are in a terrific spot. He was really efficient and lights out. 11 of 17 from the deck, 32 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. His shooting numbers starting to get better and better as I think Kemba Walker's legs start to get stronger and stronger. And look, Kemba Walker dropping 32 points, it's not something that's going to happen on a night-in, night-out basis. And the good thing for Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens, they don't need Kemba Walker to be that superstar. But if the Celtics want to make a deep run in the playoffs, this is the Kemba Walker that the Celtics need. The Kemba Walker from those days with the Charlotte Hornets. The Kemba Walker in his early stint with the Celtics, where every single night He was capable of going off and carrying this team in stretches. He can be a perfect number 3 option aside from Tatum and Brown. But if he's kind of dragging this team down like he was earlier on in the year when he just didn't look right, then this team is totally different. But I like how Kemba Walker has been playing of late. Do you agree with me? If you love the way that Kemba Walker is playing for the Boston Celtics right now, like this video and give this video a thumbs up. As for the Celtics' next 5 games, it's kind of a tough slate here. At Brooklyn, even though they've been plagued by injuries, on the road against a Charlotte Hornets team that's in desperate need of a win, against the Thunder, against the Hornets, and against the Spurs. So 2 straight games on the road, 3 straight games at home, and again, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, Robert Williams not going to play against the Brooklyn Nets here on Friday. But the good news is that Evan Fournier is going to return for this team as they look to continue to find a form of consistency in the Eastern Conference, and I've been really impressed with how they've been playing of late. NBA Now is brought to you by our friends at Newsbreak. So I recently moved to Dallas, Texas at the end of February because I started with Chat Sports on March 1st, and luckily the Newsbreak app has allowed me to make a seamless transition. Why is that? Well, if you go to chatsports.com/newsbreak, you'll see why. Because on one single feed on your iPhone or Android, you can get your local news and weather. You can get your politics, pop culture, and food. You can get your sports content as well. And basically everything that's happening from a current event standpoint, the Newsbreak app has it because it takes all of the information from all of your local news sources and plugs it in on one single feed for you. One of the other great features, if you put in your zip code, that will allow you to stay up to date with everything happening right in your neighborhood, hyper locally. So download the Newsbreak app right now by going to chatsports.com/newsbreak. Let's get to the NBA playoff picture now. NBA regular season, the end of it inching closer and closer. Can you believe it? Time has just flown by so quickly. NBA regular season is going to wrap up on May 16th. And the NBA playoff format this year, very similar to how things shook out last year in the NBA bubble. The top 6 teams in each conference automatically make the playoffs, and the 7 through 10 seeds will qualify for a play-in tournament that starts on May 18th and wraps up on May 21st with the NBA playoffs starting on May 22nd. Let's break it down for you and kind of just pass along how this is going to work out with that NBA play-in tournament. So the number 7 and 8 seeds will play against one another. The winner of that game is then the number 7 seed. The loser of that matchup then plays the winner of the 9-10 matchup. That other game, it's a matchup between the number 9 and number 10 seed. The winner plays the 7-8 loser, and the loser of the 9-10 matchup is eliminated from the play-in tournament as well as NBA playoff contention. As things are looking in the Eastern Conference right now, Sixers, they own the tiebreaker with the Brooklyn Nets. They have the same record at 39-20. The Sixers are in first place in the Eastern Conference. They would play the number 8 seed. And that 4-5 matchup actually just happened the other night at Madison Square Garden, the Mecca. The Knicks and Hawks, 2 young, excelling, rising teams. That could be a really fun matchup. And then the 3-6 matchup, another intriguing one. If the season were to end today, as we record this on April 23rd, Bucks and Celtics in that 3-6 matchup, and the Nets would play the play-in to be determined team at that 7 spot. Other matchups to get to here in the Eastern Conference, Heat and Hornets would be the 7-8 matchup. Slated in that 9-10 matchup, the Pacers and the Wizards. The Wizards with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook climbing slowly up the Eastern Conference. They've sneakily been really good over the last couple of weeks, led by Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. If they get in, they are the ultimate make some noise play-in team and the ultimate NBA League Pass team. Like if the Wizards are in the play-in tournament, I certainly want to watch it. Let's shift over to the Western Conference. The Utah Jazz, even without Donovan Mitchell, still holding on and clinging to the number 1 seed. They'd play the number 8 seed. Nuggets, Lakers as a 4-5 matchup. Nuggets 4-0 without Jamal Murray, who's out for the year because of that torn ACL. If LeBron and AD either aren't 100% or are out of the lineup, could we see an upset there? Possibly, but I think if the Lakers are healthy, they're certainly going to win that series. Clippers, Blazers in the 3-6 spot. Could Damian Lillard overtake and oust Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. The Clippers are a team that have had just so many choke artist-like games in the playoffs. They could be outed by a team like the Portland Trailblazers because Dame time and playoff time, very dangerous. And then the Phoenix Suns, right on the heels of the Utah Jazz at number 2 in the Western Conference. They will also play that play-in to be determined team in that 7 spot. And then let's round things out with the Mavericks and the Grizzlies in that play-in game at the 7-8 spot, and the Warriors and Spurs checking in at 9th and 10th place in the Western Conference. So that's how everything kind of stands with the playoff picture in the Eastern and Western Conference. As far as the playoff standings and Eastern Conference standings right now, this might be a little bit more visual for you. The 1 through 5 teams, Sixers in at first place, followed by the Nets, the Bucks, the Knicks, and the Hawks. And the Boston Celtics have dropped to the 6th spot at 32 and 27, followed by the struggling Miami Heat, the struggling Charlotte Hornets, the Indiana Pacers, and the Washington Wizards. Pivoting over to the Western Conference, the Jazz with a 2-game lead in the win column over the Phoenix Suns at 44 and 15. The Clippers in at 3rd place, followed by the Nuggets and the Lakers. Little bit of a gap there between the Nuggets with 38 wins and the Lakers at 35 wins, as well as the Lakers in the 5 spot to the Trailblazers in the 6th spot. About a 3-game difference there in the win column between those two teams. And then the rest of the Western Conference as follows: Mavericks, Grizzlies, Spurs, and Warriors. I'll tell you what, with the NBA playoffs less than a month away, really excited to see how everything shakes out with this NBA playoff picture, because there are a lot of teams who are going to jockey in different spots throughout the Eastern and the Western Conference. A lot to be decided, and you already know that we are going to be covering it ad nauseum here at Chat Sports, bringing you all of the latest across the NBA. So as Jeremy kind of gets ready to, shake things up a little bit as we continue to advance on NBA Now, there's a look at the Western Conference playoff standings right now. Appreciate all of you for watching us here on NBA Now by Chat Sports.